Ladies and gentlemen, if I could ask you to take your seats, please. Well, not you. If I could ask the one and only Oscar Pistorius to come up onto the stage with me, please. How are you, my friend?
Fine, thanks.
This is a man who needs very little introduction. One of the world's most celebrated athletes. Going to spend about a half hour here together talking about what it's like to be you.
Okay.
What is it like to be you in this Olympic and Paralympic year?
Well, this year is, first of all, thanks very much for having me here today. This year has been a kind of a build-up from the last 4 or 5 years of training, so it's getting to a point that it's very exciting, yet there's a lot of pressure and things that are on. We've got a couple more months left to qualify for the London 2012 Games. So there's, at the moment, to be me means that there's a lot of training that's getting done at the moment, and very little time for everything else, but it's going really well, and we're on target.
Let's start like Mary Poppins might have at the very beginning. We did some of this last year, and for those who weren't here, and even for those who are, your story is extraordinary. There's really no other word for it. I know it very well, but I think you know it a lot better. Well, start really in South Africa at your birth, and this is the leg you run on. So why don't you start at the beginning, please, and tell your story.
Well, last year when I was here, I remember specifically when I was getting dressed this morning that being an amputee, I obviously have a lot of advantages of having prosthetic legs, and the biggest one is probably that my feet don't sweat. So I don't often change my socks, and I remember last year at the Global Sports Forum, I actually forgot to pack a pair of black socks, and I had to come on here with white socks on, but I'm very proud that I've at least made that improvement since last year.
That was just your Michael Jackson impression, right?
Exactly. It's been, I grew up in Johannesburg, I was born there in 1986. I've got an older brother and a younger sister, and when I was born I had missing fibula between my knee and my ankle. So my parents had to go through the decision to amputate my my legs, and I had to get prosthetic legs, which I did at around 13 months old. And then from a young age, I just did everything that normal kids did that my brother and my sister were doing. So in the morning when I woke up, my mother said to me, you know, Cole, my brother, you put on your shoes, and Oscar, you put on your legs, and that's the last I want to hear of your disability. So that's kind of how I grew up. I never saw it as being something of you know, anything that should be keeping me back. I went to school with my brother when it came time to go to school, and I played sport like he did because my mom said, well, I'm not going to drive to school to pick you up and then come back later to pick up your brother. You better find a sport as well to burn time in the afternoon. So I grew up playing a whole host of sports, and then in 2003 I was playing a rugby game, and I ended up having a knee injury, and in 2004 I started sprinting as a form of getting back to my fitness level that I was at the previous year. So we got a prosthetic leg which is made for high activity sports, which is here, and 8 months later I was in Athens running at the Paralympic Games. And I'd never participated in a disabled event before, so for me it was very new and very, I didn't really know what to expect. I'd never participated on an international sporting platform before. So there's a lot to have learned from then, and every season I think I've learned a little bit, and I still have quite a bit to learn, I'm sure, till the day I retire.
So again, just to recap, you started running for the first time in 2004.
Yeah.
And X months later, you can fill in the number, you were a Paralympic champion.
Yeah.
X months, 6 months, 8 months later?
About 8 months. About 8 months. I started running in January 2004, and then in September we went to the Paralympic Games. I remember lining up on the starting blocks, and there was this French athlete, a guy called Dominique Andre, who's a very experienced athlete, and I must have been about 17 years old. I had blonde curly hair and braces.
I remember that picture.
How could you forget it?
Good look. That was a good look.
It's still haunting me. And I was, don't you dare pull up a picture of that right now. And I was on the starting blocks, and Dominique was like, he was grunting and spitting, trying to distract me, which is exactly what he wanted to do, is what he got right. And I remember thinking, wow, you know, this is really intense, and all these guys are here. And that was my introduction to the world of sprinting, really. I'd been going at it for 8 months, and I ended up running the 200 meter. I won the 200 meter at the Paralympics. I ran the 100 as well, which I wasn't as strong in, and I got a bronze medal there. But when I got back, I was kind of blown over. I didn't really know what to have expected. I wasn't too sure what just happened. So I took a couple of months off, and then in the beginning of 2005, I got back to training, and my coach said to me, look, I don't know how much fitness you've lost over the last couple of months, but I want to enter you into a 400 meter race, and we can see how your fitness has deteriorated. So I ran this 400 meter, and when I came off the track, I remember I was extremely tired, and he patted me on the back, and he said, well done, from now on you're a 400 meter runner. And I remember the feeling of complete exhaustion. I was just like, no, don't say that, let me just stick with the 200s for now. And yeah, then I started 400 meter, and since 2005, 2006, I've just really focused on that distance and try to get better efficiency and better technique on it.
Two things. We have your leg here, and with your agreement, let's pass it around. Yeah. And would you describe what the leg is made of, and how you put it on?
So basically, this is a sports prosthetic leg. Most of this leg's made from carbon fiber.
Hold the microphone up just a little.
Sorry, yeah. The bottom half is pre-pregnated carbon fiber, so it differs from about 80 layers to about 25 layers, which is compressed. The top piece is a custom-made piece. Every amputee obviously has a different socket because your stump shape is different. On the inside is a liner, which is just like a soft kind of covering between the socket and your leg. And then on the bottom, Nike have made a spike plate for this for added grip, because often we run in the rain or on surfaces where you need maximum grip. The prosthetic leg is quite light, and it's designed for high activity sports, so not only sprinting. It's been around since about 1996, this specific one, and they've sold tens of thousands of them. So it's not a custom-made piece in particular, but it's a very high-activity sports leg. And I'll pass it around. I'll ask that you guys give it back, because this is the one that I'm going to need later in the year, even later today, to practice on.
And Oscar, I'm sorry, Oscar, it's made by whom, please? Who makes it?
There's a company that started off in Iceland about 35 years ago called OSSUR.
OSSUR?
OSSUR, yeah, and this is one of the biggest prosthetic and orthotic manufacturers in the world, and they make this prosthetic leg.
Does it feel heavy on the stump?
It feels quite light compared to the prosthetic leg that I'm wearing every day. It doesn't have any cosmesis. It obviously follows a function. So if you look at a prosthetic leg, you look at a series of things. You look at durability, comfort, energy, efficiency. This leg isn't very comfortable, and it's not very aesthetically pleasing, but it's built for a function, so it is very energy efficient. It really does the job quite well. It is very durable, so the athlete has faith in the prosthetic leg, and yeah, it's been something. I've been using that exact same one since 2004, so I'm pretty used to it by now.
This particular device has been the subject of considerable testing. We'll get to that in a second. But Jean-Pierre, will you run the video, please? Because the way Oscar runs on this is fascinating to watch.
I really enjoy a challenge. I think the more you can sacrifice at something, the way sweeter the reward is. I've got 2 disabilities. I've got millions of abilities. I choose to focus on those abilities. It's a talent that I believe I've been given. I want to know that every year, every season that I look back at, that I trained as hard as I could, that I sacrificed as hard as I could. Training is the one aspect that I love. Nobody else trains on Christmas Day. It's kind of a comforting fact that you can go to bed knowing that you trained harder than 95% of your competitors. I've nearly thrown up over a kid that asked for an autograph after a race. That's only happened once. You get to the end of a training session and you are absolutely spent. I've been asked a couple of times if I could have my legs back. I'd want them back. If you give me a Ferrari 999 GTO, I'd rather take that than my legs.
So the language, the English language can be very precise in some ways and remarkably imprecise in others. What does the gait, G-A-I-T, the gait feel like when you're running? I mean, I have two working legs. Your mechanics are obviously different. What does the gait feel like to you?
I mean, the gait is very similar actually to, in the video analysis that we've done, to an able-bodied sprinter. You know, often you look at a sprinter and there's no specific build or technique that a sprinter follows. You can compare Usain Bolt to Tyson Gay, and they're very, very different in size and stature and stride length in gait. You look at a guy like Michael Johnson, who ran very upright. You know, my stride length is about 2.9, between 2.7 and 2.9 meters, depending on which part of the race. And I'd say the gait is very open on the prosthetic leg. You know, it allows for a very free motion of running like you would have if you'd had a fully intact limb. So there's no restriction on the knee joint, which is probably my biggest pivotal point. But yeah, it's a you know, I think my running style is very efficient, and I mean, I'm pretty comfortable with it.
So we both know, and I think a lot of people in the audience know, that in fact the mechanics of how you run and whether these cheetah devices give you an unfair advantage or not has been studied, as we would say in the States, up the wazoo and back. Describe the process when you started running in able-bodied races.
Yeah, I started running in able-bodied races really from the first week in 2000 or third week in 2004. And I continue to do so. I started running on an international able-body platform in 2007. At the end of that season, I ran into some difficulties with the International Amateur Athletic Federation, IAAF.
Why was that?
They claimed that the prosthetic leg that I was using, this one had an unfair. They claimed that I had an unfair advantage using the prosthetic leg. Based on the tests that they ran, they based most of their tests on VO2 max, which is the amount of oxygen used on the 400. Which isn't a very good indicator when it comes to sprinting. It's a very good indicator on longer distances.
Cycling, for instance.
Yeah. So we ended up having to do a whole host of more in-depth studies at Rice University and with scientists at MIT. And in 2008, we went to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and they had a unanimous decision with all three arbitrators that there was no way that the prosthetic leg could provide an advantage, which we were very happy about. But it also let them implement certain restrictions on the prosthetic leg, which I think were very important, because you could easily create a prosthetic leg that could provide an advantage. This is a restriction based on this prosthetic leg made by this company with these materials, which I'm quite happy about. And I think it also, in a way, there was a very big positive spin-off of it, because there would have always been questions. You know, I believe there will always be criticism, but there would have always been questions surrounding the prosthetic leg. And it put a lot of those questions to rest, having to go through a lot of those tests.
Was the court decision, the Court of Arbitration for Sport, for those who aren't familiar, is sport's highest tribunal. Was the decision itself sort of liberating for you? I mean, for those of us in the press, it felt like a, okay, Oscar, go run kind of moment.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'd been running for so many years already that it kind of, when I got the initial ban, it was kind of like something was taken away, and not like I had been afforded something which was something that I hadn't deserved. You know, I trained exceptionally hard for several years, and then when I got the ban, it felt like something was taken away. I mean, there are Paralympic athletes all around the world competing on able-bodied platforms, maybe not on an international level, but on, you know, state levels, on county levels and regional levels and that sort of thing. So that ban kind of implemented anybody using this prosthetic leg wasn't allowed to compete on an able-bodied platform, which just seemed kind of, you know, I would understand if I was the only one using this prosthetic leg, but there are thousands of people around the world that have used this exact same leg and haven't run close or even under 50 seconds on the 400 meters. So it's not like there's an advantage, you know, you're an average athlete, you put on this leg and all of a sudden you can perform these phenomenal times. So for me, there was definitely a sense of responsibility to go through and to do the testing. And you're right, when the court did make the ruling, I was definitely kind of relieved that the whole process was over and I could just get back to the job of running.
So let's take the story forward just a little bit. At the 2008 Paralympic Games in Beijing, you rocked.
Thank you.
You won just a bunch of medals.
Yeah, I mean, we had a big order at the Paralympics in Athens. I wanted to run the 100, the 200, and the 400. I was a current world record holder in the 100, so I still wanted to win that event. However, I'd moved solely really into 400-meter training, So that was the first race of the Paralympic Games, was the 100. When I got that out of the way, I was very relieved. I remember in the final, I came out of the blocks very slowly, and at about the 30-meter mark, I was about 6 meters behind the guy who was in first. I remember just kind of being able to pause that moment and thinking, Oscar, you are in so much trouble. Like, you've got 70 meters, forget about the first 30 and just make of the best what you possibly can. And I won that race by 300th of a second. I think I dipped the American athlete Jerome Singleton pretty much in the last 30, 40 centimeters of the race. And in the press conference after the race, he just came up to me. He's like, man, where did you come from? Where did you come from? Yeah. And he still thinks that I owe him a medal from that. But, you know, it was quite funny. In 2004, in the 100 meters, I came behind very, very quick. And I went to one of the American guys and I said to him, if it was 101 meters, I would have got the gold, you know. And he said, but it's not 101 meters, it's 100 meters. And that same athlete came to me in Beijing and he goes, oh, if it was 99 meters, you would have had the silver. And I said, but it's not 99 meters, you know, it's 100. And that's our game, you know, it's that distance. That's you have to cover that exact distance in the shortest time. And Beijing was definitely a huge experience for me. The 200 went well. The 400, I managed to run a world record. It was the last event of the whole games, and it was just a very special moment. So I look back at that as probably one of the highlights of my career.
Sure. And just to be clear, so everyone understands, you do plan to compete in the 2012 Paras in London.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I'm as excited for the Paralympics as I am for the opportunity to hopefully be running in the Olympics. South Africa will hopefully enter a 4x100 meter relay in the Paralympics. We broke the world record 2 weeks ago as a South African team, so I'm pretty sure we can get a medal there, and it'll be exciting if we can do 4 events and manage to pull off a couple of medals in those.
And you and Jerome have, I think, an exciting, compelling rivalry that really ought to bring focus to the Paralympics, perhaps for the first time ever.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of really quick guys at the moment. Jerome Singleton, the American single amputee athlete, is a phenomenal ambassador for the sport. You know, we've got a fellow countryman of mine, a guy called Anu Fari, who's posted some extremely quick times. He ran a personal best 2 weeks ago, which is quicker than any times Jerome's ever run. So that's exciting. I think if you look at the time difference between the first and fourth athlete at the International Paralympic Committee's World Champs last year, it was the same as the number 1 and 2 in the Olympics. So the Paralympic finishes are very, very close. And there are about 6 guys that are very close to the same time. So it'll be a nail-biting race, even for, I think, the athletes involved at the...
This is all in the 100, of course. In the 100.
Yeah, in the 100 meters, yeah.
Okay, so now let's return our focus back to able-bodied sport and the 400. So I always say that anyone can run 300 meters. I mean, anyone in this room can probably run 300 meters. It's the last 100 that's the killer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, there's so much going into a 400-meter race. You start off the race trying to get a very quick reaction time, then you settle into the pace of the race. You come out of the corner, the first corner, you want to settle onto the back straight with as much efficient speed as possible, so high velocity but fairly easy. And then at about 200, 180 meters to go, depending on the wind and the position that you're in, on which lane you're in, you kind of make a run for the end. And I think that's for every sprinter really what the 400 is, epitomizes is that last 100 meters. You get to the 300 meter mark, everybody's exhausted, but then that's where the race really begins. And it's not just a physical race, it's a mental race. And you know, if you put in hard training and hard work, by the time you get to that 300 meter, you know, it's confidence really. It's that ability to overrule your body and just to push yourself to kind of extend your barrier.
And that's having watched and reported about you a great deal last year. That's what last year was all about. Let's talk about last year in some detail. You had to qualify for the World Championships, which were held in Daegu, South Korea, and it was, well, not an ordeal, but there was a time clock, and you had to qualify by July 20th. Tell everyone in the room how you did it and where you did it and how you beat the clock.
So I started my season last year in South Africa in about March. I opened the season with a personal best, which was about 45.6.
The qualifying mark was what?
The qualifying mark, there's 2 standards. The B standard is about 45.75, and the A standard was 45.25. At the end of last year's season, I think there were roughly about 20 people in the world that achieved the A standard. and I'd set off the season pretty much trying to get to that point throughout the season. I ended up running several races. I ran in Portland and on Oregon at one of Nike's meets. I ran in New York. I ran in Paris. And each race I was trying to get quicker and quicker. And on the 18th of July, which was the cutoff, which was my last race before the cutoff on the 20th, I had a small race in Legnano in Italy. And this race was kind of my last chance to qualify. And I came out with the race. I just decided I needed to go very hard on the back straight. And I settled in nicely on the last 100, and I ran a 45.07. So I made the qualification quite easily, and it was very overwhelming because that was the last chance that I had to qualify for Diego. But looking back at last year's season, I mean, I really listened to what my coach had to offer, and I've been with him for 8 years. And I think the preparation work that he did with me was just extraordinary. So I've got a lot to thank for my team for my performances last year.
So that qualified you for the World Championships in Daegu, where you were, and you can't say this, but I can, an absolute sensation. Jean-Pierre, let's show Oscar's semifinal race in Daegu, please.
Well, a good note, it's picking up on Pistorius on his outside, on the inside also going well. Martin Rudy of Great Britain closing down on his outside. Tony McQuay though, comfortable down there in lane 6. It's McQuay, I think, that's going to be coming out in front of the rest of the field here. McQuay looking good. Pistorius coming hard though on the outside. Pistorius is actually taking the lead, I think, at the moment. Rudy, though, on the inside is running well. Rudy, and on this side, Chris Brown. Pistorius is running well. He's coming through and relaxing almost as he comes into line. Wow.
That was quite a nerve-wracking race, actually. I really enjoyed it, and just running out in Korea, you know, the IAAF hosted a phenomenal competition. That was my first big multi-event international platform that I'd ever run on. And running in lane 8, you're running what we call blind, so you don't have a perception of how fast the race is going, but you just have to get out fairly quick. I knew that the kid on the inside of me was going to go out very, very hard because he's a 200-meter specialist. So I just had to kind of keep my cool but not lose contact with him. And then the last 150, I just tried to turn it on as hard as I possibly could. And yeah, we had a good race.
So I can say these kinds of things and you can't. It's pretty obvious to us in the press that they're putting you either in lane 1 or lane 8. They're afraid like your legs are going to fly off or something. Do you feel that?
I mean, I run, you know, in whatever lane I get, and, you know, for me, I've got to practice, and at training, we train from lane 1 to lane 8. Obviously, it's nice to get a middle lane, but, you know, the job has to be done from any lane possible, and I've run this is my 9th season this year. I train pretty much every day in the same lane as my counterpart training partner, and we run similar times. We've never had an incident. Sometimes, you know, we'll run in the same lane and we bump each other, and you kind of, halfway through your breath, you kind of, sorry, and you kind of keep on going. But, you know, that happens in both ways. And, I mean, I've never had an incident of spiking anyone.
Of course not.
Yeah, so I don't mind. Lane 1 or lane 8, you know, if I can get that opportunity to run, I'm happy.
But everyone should understand that the torque and the forces on your body are very different in lane 1 and lane 8 than they are in the middle of the track. They're very different.
Yeah, definitely. The lanes, the tracks that we run at base, I think between 36.5 and about 41.5 degrees. So some tracks, lane 1 is very, very steep. For argument's sake, in New York, lane 1 is like a normal lane 3. The corner's not as steep on the gradients. In lane 1, the problem that you have is that you can't accelerate too quickly because you extend your stride when you accelerate very hard, especially coming into the final straight. And that force that you extend with your left leg ends up actually pushing your body into an upright position. It's a bit hard to explain because it's just one of those things. And the force on the outside on your ITB and on your hip joints is a lot more severe. Also on the 100, in lane 1, when you accelerate, your outside leg has to go a lot further because the corner is very tight. And then the opposite in lane 8, but then in lane 8, as I said, you run blind, so you don't actually have contact with the rest of the athletes, which is sometimes unless you're an experienced athlete, sometimes can be a bit of a challenge.
And this, I think, was the whole experience of 2011, wasn't it? You and I have talked at length about this. 2011 was a learning experience, and that's what the final is going to show here in a minute. Do you want to talk about it before we watch the race or after or both?
Yeah, I made it to the semi-final. Experience was one of the biggest keys that I wanted to run in the World Champs last year. With the build-up to London, I knew I was running good times that could qualify me for the London Olympic Games. But experience is the one thing that I've lacked. I've run a lot of races, and yes, I've been on the international circuit, but running a multi-event competition is very different. You know, each race has different preparations, has different athletes, has different weather conditions. And Diego, difference between running in the middle of the day and in the evening was massive because they had these katabatic winds that came down the mountain, and the way the stadium was positioned, we ran into a kind of a headwind on the back straight, so you had to plan the race differently. But you can't think about the race that you have tomorrow. You have to think about the race you've got now. And I think that experience definitely I lacked. And in the semi-final, it showed. I ran a very average time for my performance compared to what I'm capable of. But you know, I was happy that I had that experience of the World Championships, and I'm sure that that knowledge and kind of a feel I gained, I'll be able to implement into running better races this year.
And also just the stress and pressure, if those are the right words, of dealing with the jackals of us, the press. No, really, the huge demands after the triumph in the semifinal, that's a lot of attention on you.
Yeah, I think, you know, there is always a lot of tension at big meets, and that's one of the things you have to, as any sportsman, deal with. You know, there's always going to be moments that you get built up and broken down. But if you just kind of stay away from that, you know, there's times that you can focus on that. At a World Championships, we hosted a press conference, got it over, done and dusted, and I tried to, you know, stay away from the news reports on whether it be on my computer or, you know, any media on the phone. I just kind of try to leave it. So, you know, you have to focus on what you have to do. At the end of the day, it's a job, and it's pretty similar. I'm sure a lot of you don't sit in your boardroom meetings and read your financials on NASDAQ or something like that. You know, it's just one of those times when you're meant to focus, you put your head down and you graft. And it is easier said than done, but, you know, I think the experience that I gained in Diego will definitely be useful in this year.
So Jean-Pierre, let's show the learning experience that was the final here.
Expect Pistorius to be run down quite quickly by a couple of the guys inside him. He's always a slow starter. Already Nixon of the USA is almost level with the South African. At the moment, Jermaine Gonzalez, the Jamaican, is gaining ground as well, right on the outside. Ogunodi has gone off very quickly indeed, but Pistorius is there. Gonzalez, the Jamaican in the yellow top, coming level now with Greg Nixon. Bartholomew, he's there as well, and so is Jonathan Borley, the European champion. Right on the inside is Pinder. This is very competitive. Gonzalez holding everybody at bay just for the time being. He's just ahead of Bartholomew inside it. Oh, Bartholomew and Borley in a photograph for that precious second place.
So yeah, I ran a 46, just over 46 seconds in that race.
Which for you is slow.
Yeah, which for me is slow. But you know, I can look back at it and definitely need to. I think the races that go well, you need to, you know, identify which points of the race you could improve on. But the races that go badly, you just have to look at the whole race and be very critical, and then, you know, hopefully improve on that on the next time out.
So we have, unfortunately, only about 3 minutes. We could talk here for a long time. What's the goal for 2012?
2012, we've got obviously the London Olympic and Paralympic Games coming up. I've still got to run another A qualification time in order to cement my place in the South African team.
So just to be so everyone understands, you have to qualify again.
Yeah, we have to qualify in the calendar year of the games. The qualification time has now become slower. It was at 45.25 seconds. It's now at 45.30. That small difference, I ran 2 times in last year, so technically I would have 3 qualification times already. I just need 1 more, and I mean, we're on target with the training we've done. We've got 2 months still to prepare for the European season, which starts in the middle of May.
You'll be down in South Africa for the next few weeks?
Yeah, we're down in South Africa and just working hard there. You know, the weather's good, the altitude's phenomenal. My trainers are all there, and my support team is really, that's where it's at its best. So for preparation, I think that's where it's going to be key.
And after today, I think you're probably pretty much done talking to reporters like me, right?
Definitely like you. No, you know, it's been a blessing. I've got a great team that, you know, manages my time quite well, and they try to keep me, you know, there are times in the year where you have to just put your head down and graft harder, and then that's the time now for the next 2 months is just training, not having to worry about anything else, and working hard in preparation for the Paralympic and Olympic Games.
You can't say this, but I can. After 2011, there are 2 big stories heading, at least in athletics as the rest of the world says it, and in track and field as we in the United States say it, heading toward London in 2012. One is Usain Bolt, and 2 is you. Do you feel that kind of pressure?
To be honest, I mean, I've given very little thought actually to London. I mean, most of my energy is spent in actually qualifying and in the training now. You know, I believe it's great to have goals in the future, but you need to focus on what's going to get you to those goals. So every week's preparation is key. I think by the time I qualify for London, I'll start thinking about that and my performance that I need to put in there. But right now, it's about the graft that needs to go in order to obtain those goals. So I'm looking forward to London. I think it'll be a phenomenal experience. I know the work that Lord Seb Coe and his team at LOCOG have done has been absolutely phenomenal, and excited for that opportunity.
Games start July 27th. Track and field starts about a week later. We'll see you there.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I think somebody ran out the door there with my prosthetic leg. So
if we can get Oscar's leg back, that would be great. And a conversation with Lord Sebastian Coe is coming right up. Give us just a couple minutes, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you.